kick it off. And we're just going to see how it goes. 60 seconds per pick. Maybe that's a little bit much. Maybe it's not. But I want people to have a good experience. PPR format. I'm just going to try to talk my way through this as we draft. McCaffrey goes 1. I think that's right. He's got the injury, but what he's able to do is just leaps and bounds above what any other running back I think can typically do. So I like McCaffrey going 1. Tyreek Hill is the first wide receiver off the board. I think it'll be interesting to see late August whether, CeeDee Lamb gets a contract. Beckham takes him at 3. Does Jamar Chase get a contract to potentially consider himself as the top wide receiver off the board for fantasy? To me, it's Lamb. I would even take Lamb probably right now, even with the contract concerns and Jerry Jones being a dummy. But you can't really go wrong with Tyreek Hill, can you? Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pretty chalky at this point. You could switch Amon-Ra or Jefferson in either order for me. Breece Hall goes. Interesting pick there by TP99 going Bijan as early as number 4. There are some people who are ready to plant the flag on Bijan Robinson this year. I kind of lean Breece Hall over Bijan, but I'll hear arguments. Jahmyr Gibbs goes number 9, and that puts me on the clock. Take a look at my roster. I'd love to be able to move my face out of the way for people. Yeah, let me put it right there where the stats are because nobody's really looking at that. Nobody's really looking at that anyway. They're just looking at the names. All right. The 1.10, I kind of put myself in a tough spot on purpose, a draft position that could be difficult to deal with. I'm trying to take a look here. Let's check out some running backs. It's kind of a tough spot, man. Gibbs might have been a good pick for me. I'm a little worried about the injury, though, with him, to be totally honest with you. A.J. Brown, I'm probably going wide receiver. It's too early to do anything else other than running back and receiver. Puka's got an injury. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. We'll take the plunge on Garrett Wilson at the 1.10. I feel like with Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson could really emerge. He's got so much talent. We haven't seen him yet with a good quarterback, and this could be the year that we get to. Yeah, Gibbs with the hammy in the first round. I love me some Gibbs. I really do. It's going to be tough. But here's the thing about Gibbs. What about David Montgomery? Do people worry about him? Because the Lions used David Montgomery as the goal line back, and they used him as sort of the workhorse in a lot of ways, and Gibbs was kind of the change of pace guy. And they like Montgomery. So I don't know that they're necessarily going to change that this year, but it feels like we're all going to want them to. This is a true story, and this is a reason that if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button on this channel. And Smooth Criminal, I'll talk about the Garrett pick over A.J. Brown a little bit. And A.J. goes with the very next pick. So it was going to be one or the two. But I tend to, my theory always, and you'll see this throughout my draft here, I tend to pick players that we haven't seen their best in the NFL yet because I think I can get an ADP around value. And that doesn't work out for me all the time, but I tend to appreciate that more because if Garrett Wilson is, with Aaron Rodgers, just a mega stud, he then vaults into that Chase, Amon-Ra, Jefferson, Lamb, Tyreek Hill tier. For A.J. Brown, I feel like the Eagles are taking a little bit of a step back this year for fantasy. They're going to be great. They're going to be fine. I worry about the Jason Kelce factor. When the Eagles had a 4th and 1, you knew Jalen Hurts was going to get that tush-push. I don't know if it's going to be the same this year. And I also think A.J. Brown's got to share with Devontae Smith. I'm taking Marvin Harrison. I'm not even going to make any bones about this pick. I just got done saying I want to take the guys that I think I can get draft round value on. And Marvin Harrison, to me, high upside, man. Yep, and Jay Noli is saying, hey, high upside picks are okay. Look, you got to kind of, my thought is this. I don't want to leave a fantasy draft with regret. I used to do it all the time. I used to sit there and deliberate over players and say, oh my gosh, this guy fell to me. I can't pass him up. His ADP is whatever. I don't do that anymore. Last few years, I make a list of players that I'm eligible to draft, and I do not stray from it. I do not stray from it because it simplifies the process. When you're in a live draft and you have 60 seconds to pick, those are the kinds of things that I want to be talking about on this YouTube channel as we go along, not only throughout the month of August, but then when we get into the season, you're going to see me talking a lot about trades because trades, to me, are one of the most fun aspects of fantasy football. So Garrett, or Smooth Criminal asks why Garrett over AJ. That's my reasoning, honestly, is I think Garrett might have another gear, and I think AJ, I'm drafting him at about his ceiling. But AJ Brown's a sensational player. You can't go wrong with him either. Good wide receiver options with my second pick. I went with Marvin Harrison Jr. If you've been watching any of my mock draft content so far on the channel, I have been kind of liking the idea of Kyler Murray with a late round pick, and not to like, obviously you guys are watching, some of y'all are drafting with me. It's just part of the deal. It's okay if I burn a strategy, because strategies will change over the next few weeks. I'm not even worried about it if people in my real leagues are watching. That's okay. This is something I want to do for content purposes, and that's just part of it comes with the territory. But I think Marvin Harrison is a guy that I am kind of drafting him close to his ceiling, because this is a guy we've never seen in the NFL. I'm drafting with the 15th overall pick. That being said, I'm going to take this strategy usually throughout a draft and shoot for upside. Keep in mind the format as well. 2 running backs go right after my Harrison pick, but we've got 3 wide receivers in our starting lineups in this league and a flex. And in full PPR, I'm typically always going to want a wide receiver in my flex position. So that's just a little bit into the thought process. I'll tell you everything about my thought processes, and just trust that, it'll be the first year I've ever really done this level of fantasy content. So if it ruins my leagues and I have to keep some things a little close to the vest, that's okay for the future seasons. But for now, it's kind of fun. I like being able to grab 2 elite wide receivers at the beginning. And this could be a year where it zigs back the other direction, and I might lean more toward running back. Obviously, in this draft, I didn't. But if you were to put me right now on the other side of this board, kind of where Shapes was with Tyreek Hill, and then he's going to be at 2.11 and 3.2, and then Derrick Henry. So this is very interesting. A lot of my drafts on Sleeper, Derrick Henry might even fall to the top of the 3rd round. I really like Derrick Henry this year. I was just getting ready to comment. If at 2.11 Derrick Henry's there, I'm taking him, and I think that's the last running back of a tier for me. But the first round, if you look at the way the first round unfolds, it's the opposite. 8 wide receivers, 4 running backs. That means that there's going to be more running back value to be had in the middle of that first round than there have been in previous years. Previous years, it would be McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan. That would be your top 3, and then you start to filter into the wide receivers. People understand, though, now in full PPR, there is a lot of value to stacking elite wide receivers at the beginning of your draft. I've been a 0 RB proponent throughout my fantasy career. However, I think this year could be a hero RB build or an anchor RB, where look at all the RBs that were drafted in rounds 1 and 2. I think I love all of them. But after that, I think you start to honestly, and Pacheco will be great. There's no doubt he'll be good. But I think the dead zone creeps up a little earlier this year than it has in the past. And I just don't find myself as enamored with a lot of the running backs in this range. I've got a running back that I'm hoping is going to drop to me at the 3-4 turn. We'll see if I end up being able to grab the guy I'm looking for to at least lock in 1 RB. But that's kind of my thought is I'd rather leave with somebody Derrick Henry or above, and then I can kind of coast and wait around for an RB2. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like this kind of fantasy content. I'll be reading the chat as we go. I also have to sort of make sure I'm looking at the draft board so I can perform. But yeah, Josh, love this because I'm needing some mock draft practice with actual people. We're going to be doing this almost nightly, maybe not quite nightly, but we're going to try to do this in August a decent amount. Trust that, look, there's going to be issues with technology, and my computer is going to mess up, and just keep the faith. I think we can have a lot of fun with this kind of stuff. I'm interested to see your guys' thoughts on the tight end and quarterback positions. We see, and I'll open up the board for everybody for a moment. We see Laporta at 3.3 and Josh Allen at 3.6. That's later than when I'm drafting against computers on these mocks, but I think it's probably right. Arkansas Craig, Snags, Malik Neighbors. That's another guy I was looking at. I think Malik Neighbors, even with the injury he has, by the time drafts happen in late August, you're not going to see him fall past the 3rd. It might not even be as deep as Arkansas took him. But Craig, you definitely sniped me. I don't know if you've been watching my content to know that I'm intrigued by Malik Neighbors, but that's okay. That's what makes this pretty fun. As you see, not many running backs taken in round 3. Pacheco's been the only one, and then there have been a big long wait. Travis Kelce at 3.10. You guys are tempting me right now. I think that's a little bit late for Kelce to still be out there, but it makes me wonder. I don't want to start the tight end run. If somebody else is going to start it, that's more than fine. I'm going to lock in, I think, another wide receiver here. And I've got a few guys I really like, man. But I'm up against it, aren't I? Let's just lock in DK Metcalf. I got guys in this range that I'm not really looking Diggs, not really looking at Steph Diggs, but DJ Moore. I almost wish I took DJ Moore and Kelsey doesn't fall beyond me. I'm going to see if Kelsey's there at 310 in a real draft, I might have to scoop him up. But I wanted to see kind of how long it would take and what happens with the tight ends as we move. I bet if I don't take a tight end at 4-2, we're going to see a run to where by the time we get to 5'11", I might not be thrilled with my options, but that's okay. These learning experiences, I think, are so valuable before you do your draft because you get to see what real people are actually thinking about players. Yeah, I would have loved to have had Malik Neighbors, I think, in the third or fourth round, but hey, people see what I see. DJ Moore's a nice pick. The reason that I'm thinking maybe I should not have taken DK Metcalf is I don't want to double stack too many teams, and I was kind of thinking about Ken Walker maybe as a running back, but with where the ADP is right now, I don't think Ken Walker is going to be a fit for my team. I might end up 0-RBing this just out of pure spite for the fact that I got sniped on Neighbors and I now am locked into having a Seahawk. Here's my thoughts on DK Metcalf real quick because I took him over a lot of other good options, granted, many of which have fallen to me. I like Devontae Smith value here. Zay Flowers, number 1 for Lamar Jackson. I think Tank Dell of the Houston receivers is honestly the best value. But you're seeing like Diggs is falling back toward Tank Dell. I think Nico Collins is going to fall back toward Tank Dell. And those guys are all going to end up meeting in the middle around round 3. And somebody's going to be upset with who they picked there because not all 3 of them are going to be great for fantasy. It's just very rare that you'll see that happen, that all 3 can be great. So that is going to be very interesting. I'm not a huge Rachaad White fan, just in terms of historically, I'm not a huge fan, and I understand that for PPR he was so good last year. But I'm a little bit tempted to take him now. Quarterbacks are dropping. Tight ends are dropping. I'm going to end up with a ton of value, I think, at wide receiver. I'm a little worried that the run's going to come at both those positions here, but let's just grab a guy. Let's grab Tank Dell and let's see what happens. I'm going to go 4 wide receivers to kick it off just to kind of challenge myself. Again, in a real draft, would I have the stones? Maybe not. But this is for fun and for learning, and it gives me players I like. That's the other thing too. I'm drafting players that I love. It's not going to be a matter of, oh man, I wish I didn't have Tank Dell on my team. No, once the draft ends and I'm pulling up my roster, I'll be glad I have the players I have. I just may leave myself short at other positions because there are wide receivers that I like later on in this draft that I'm inevitably not going to have the freedom to select anymore because I went so heavy on wideouts at the beginning. That's why it's so fun to be able to do different strategies, though, in mocks. Cobb is high on Drake London this year with him having a competent quarterback throwing to him for sure. And Drake London's being drafted like that, right? I mean, he was second rounder, right? Middle of the second to dead ringer. So people are on to Drake London being a potential really strong value. And for me, Kyle Pitts, could also be that guy. Potentially. I mean, I like Kirk Cousins. And that's the other thing. I was like, well, let's take Jalen Hurts with that pick instead of Tank Dell. I could have done that, but at the same time, I think the quarterback value in this draft is going to be tremendous. Nobody's taking quarterbacks. The run is going to come. It might come soon. But for Josh Allen to drop to the 3.6 and then we don't see another quarterback taken since then, that's something. Cobb wants to wait on tight end. Ikta's wishing everybody luck with the draft. Appreciate you, brother. DK is going to get suspended for a few games. Lock it in. What's he suspended for? Metcalf? Cobb was looking Flowers over Metcalf. Yeah, I wish I had taken... honestly, having Malik Neighbors go at 3.9, I was kind of thinking Malik Neighbors at 3.10. So I had to pivot. But here's my thought on Metcalf. New coaching staff in Seattle. And they've said they think he's got another gear. I'll pull it up here. I can actually show you on the screen what has been reported about him. It says here, and it's kind of small on the screen. DK Metcalf has another level. Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf has been a top fantasy wideout for years. However, according to Geno Smith, he has another level and plans to unlock it this season, which that's kind of like, coach speak, doesn't really mean anything. There's another recent article that talked about they want to make DK Metcalf a matchup problem for defenses. Like, we're going to move him around. We'll put him in the slot. We'll put him outside. I think they're going to use DK in the way that, like, his physical presence is undeniable. I think the next step and the next iteration is for a coaching staff to say, all right, remember that you've always had this guy who's like gigantic and as fast as hell. Let's just throw it to him every time and get him open, scheme him open. I think they're going to do more of that in Seattle this year. So if you're telling me I get him as my wide receiver 3, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. We're starting to see the tight ends and quarterbacks come off the board, as I kind of thought we might. We see Andrews, Kincaid have gone. So we've seen now 5 tight ends go. 3 quarterbacks have come off the board. This is going to be the round for, I think for folks who haven't gotten one yet, round 5 or round 6, people are going to start really looking at those positions. But it's fun to see different draft strategies. Beckham has not taken a wide receiver since the first round, and he grabs Amari Cooper here. Very interesting. Kyle Pitts goes a little earlier. I was hoping maybe Kyle Pitts could fall to me. But this is why you do mocks, man. You catch yourself in a bind, and then you have to figure it out from there. I'll continue to try to move this around so I'm not blocking the board as people are looking. Colin says, doing another one after this one, I'd like to get involved. Yeah, Colin, man, I might double up. I do still have to do a Cardinals podcast later on tonight for my baseball peeps, but yeah, this is going to be kind of the vibe, I think, in August when it's not Cardinals stuff. It's going to be this. So please do subscribe to this channel. It's somewhat of a new channel, and something I'm trying to really get going. I started it last year, but didn't really advertise it much. And now I'm trying to get it going. I'm hoping maybe live streams are the way to kind of unlock this channel a little bit. Take you a peek behind the curtain. George Pickens goes. Let's bring up my roster again so I can see what I'm cooking with. Scroll down so everybody can see what the league is cooking with. And by the way, I do have a couple of leagues that I will still be looking to fill a couple of spots in. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter if you're interested, and I'll try to sort through some of those interest forms of people that might want to play, and we'll try to figure something out. Lamar Jackson goes. It's getting dicey up in here at tight end and quarterback. I'll tell you what. I'm sure Arkansas Craig is taking one or the other. Kittle goes. I think quarterback's got value to it, but you're looking at Stroud, and I could stack with Stroud. Anthony Richardson's got rushing upside. There's a lot to like about some of the players in this level. All right. Now we got to make some decisions, don't we? Where are we at here on running back? Don't love a lot of the value at this stage. I definitely, and this is why Hero RB makes a lot more sense, right? Because I've locked myself into so many wide receivers. I don't need another one right now. I'm almost not even wanting to look at the wide receiver position, and I'm not going to for this pick. Quarterbacks, there's a few good ones I feel pretty good about. So it's really tight end or running back for me. And I'm looking at these two teams. They've already got tight ends, so I don't need to really worry about drafting one because I'm going to get to come around at the turn here again here soon. I might go the opposite. I'm going to take David Montgomery, go the opposite of my love for Jahmyr Gibbs and say, I don't know, what if Gibbs is injured? We're going to try to attack this running back position by just getting some volume. And I think, and you talk about touchdown equity, David Montgomery could have that. So we get a piece of the Lions offense. I don't love the value, but I think I kind of landed in this area based on drafting so heavy at wide receiver at the beginning. Which is, again, something that I try to do almost on purpose to be defiant in a mock and then say, is this going to cost me or can I find a way through with it? Micah, what's up, man? Appreciate you for being here, brother. I see the comment from Cobb HD. He likes Connor, underrated. Connor's eventually, here's the thing, with older running backs, they're eventually going to have that year where they break down. And while I like that Arizona offense, I took a piece of it with Marvin Harrison. I'm not sure I want to be caught holding the bag on James Conner, especially in the year where they did draft Trey Benson, and this is PPR. I think Trey Benson is going to mix in as their pass-catching third down back, and I might want a piece of him late if I can grab a piece. So that's kind of part of my thought process as well. Is like I don't really know if I want to lean in on the older running back of a team that just drafted a new one. They didn't spend a ton. I think third, fourth round pick, something like that for Trey Benson. We see Richardson go off the board to Micah. Micah's got a nice little team cooking up. Puka and DJ Moore. He's got running backs with Barkley and now Ramondre, and he's got the onesies handled. Tight end and quarterback have been selected as well. Rashee Rice goes. Going to be really interesting to see. I don't think he's going to be suspended at the beginning of the year, which means he may not be suspended at all, which means Rashee Rice in the 6 is probably crazy value. That his market is going to be clarified more and more as time goes on. That's what I'm thinking. Well, I could take a quarterback here. Normally, I'd like to wait even longer. Yeah, I could also grab a wide receiver if I want to, if I really want to just be defiant and spiteful. Here's my thought on quarterback. Like, half the league's got one. Stroud, Burrow, Dak, Kyler, Love, Purdy, Caleb. There's so many guys remaining that are going to be really good. I don't need to do it. I want to learn. I want to use this as an opportunity to learn. So instead, I'm going down board and taking Xavier Worthy. I'm a big fan of Worthy. And I'm going to go ahead and lock him in here. Now that Chiefs are starting to go off the board. Hollywood Brown with his injury. Yeah, we didn't take tight end either. That's going to be the one regret of the draft. I think after I started talking about Rice, I was like, oh, yeah, it's now or never if I want Worthy, isn't it? I could have taken a tight end, but that's okay. Yeah, I think Worthy would have been long gone. So I actually have a wide receiver on my bench before even filling out my lineup. And there are going to be people who are like, well, that's crazy. And it might be. It's a mock draft, though. It's a mock draft. Evan Ingram goes. So, and really, there's only a couple more teams with tight ends left. And look, I mean, you got Njoku's still out there, Bowers, Goddard. It'll be fine. Freiermuth. Cole Kmet, honestly, might be my just take a punt tight end and lock him in. But I do think this is a year where you might want to be maybe not below the Kittle line on tight end. But It's okay. I don't mind it. Because, again, I'm looking at every player on my roster and thinking, I love the guys I have. The only one that I don't find myself drafting a ton of in previous mocks is David Montgomery. But that has only been a recent opinion that I've started to build on because of the Gibbs injury and the realization that, like, Montgomery might be more of a workhorse. And he scored a lot of touchdowns last year. So I'm actually kind of cool with it. And in this league, this is honestly exactly how my main league went last year. I drafted David Montgomery. I drafted him at the bitter end. I think Hawkinson is probably not. We had Noli go on auto draft. Noli, if you're still there you go. Take off auto draft. Might have been a Q situation there for Noli. Yeah, the quarterback slide has been crazy. But look, I mean, these teams coming up now are about to take some. Dead Ringer grabs Bowers. He was who I maybe should have taken instead of Worthy, but I'm trying to show that I want to make sure I get guys I love. Bowers could be the one that saves you, but even he gets pushed up into the 6th round. That's telling me I got to be a little more willing to spend a pick on tight end early. There's still so many good receivers on the board, too. Guys I really do like. Which tells me, hey, maybe don't take receivers with your first 4 picks. But I can't argue with Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Metcalf, and Tank Dell. Xavier Worthy. And part of my strategy, and you can tell me what you think of this, but when I play these leagues and I'm a little bit lean at RB2 and maybe even RB1, I have a lot of wide receivers that are startable, playable, and have upside. And they're on my bench too. So in a situation where somebody else, what position gets hurt more often, RB or wide receiver? It's usually running backs. Receivers can go down too. But if I don't draft very many of the position that people tend to lose in the first few weeks, they're scrambling with trying to find the backup running back. Whereas my wide receivers, hopefully, this doesn't always work this way, but hopefully they're healthy. And then I can say, hey, man, let's say this lineup looks pretty good, but Xavier Worthy absolutely smacks. And I'm like, I can't leave Worthy on the bench. I got to play him. But DK Metcalf is putting up some good numbers. I might be like, I'll trade DK Metcalf with, maybe a player off my bench or maybe with my starting tight end for a better tight end. Or with a running back, with David Montgomery for a better RB1. those are the types of trades that you can make from strength when your team is healthy. When your team is not healthy, it doesn't work out. I knew I was saying goodbye to Kyler Murray, too, when I didn't draft a quarterback when I could have. But we've got this team here, Team 4. They don't have a quarterback. A couple teams in front of me don't have a quarterback. But other than that, most everybody's got one. Team 11 doesn't have one. That's all right. I want people to be able to see my team, my beautiful roster. Excuse me. Make sure you guys subscribe if you have not done so. Chris Lee 72 wants a Cardinals show. No Cardinals live tonight. I mean, with the way the game went, we can talk about it, but man, it was brutal. It was brutal. So I thought, let's do a fantasy video instead. Cobb would have grabbed Burrow. Always fear of waiting too long, and then you're stuck with Geno Smith as your QB. I understand that, but honestly, I almost am doing it on purpose to demonstrate that that's not the worst thing in the world. Unless teams start drafting their backup quarterback, which I don't really play in a lot of leagues that have that problem, let's look and tell me that I'm not going to still end up with a quality NFL quarterback for fantasy. This team right here, Team 4, they still need a quarterback, but everybody else has one, except for Craig here that's drafting right now. Team 11 doesn't have one, but I get to pick before Team 11 if I really wanted to. You're not telling me Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, I mean the number one pick, who his team went and traded for. Well, they drafted Rome Odunze, they traded for Keenan Allen, they have DJ Moore. You don't think Caleb Williams has a chance? I think it's going to be fine. Jared Goff plays a crazy number of indoor games this year, and he's like a menace in indoor games. Jaden Daniels has rushing upside. Kirk Cousins, I've already talked about him. I am not afraid of waiting at quarterback. Jordan Love, I could stack Jordan Love with again, I've already got my receivers, so I'm not going to do this, but I could backwards stack Jordan Love with like a Romeo Dobbs as my flex. Jaden Reed's been taken. Christian Watson's probably still out there. Yeah, he's down here. Like, I'm not afraid of waiting a quarterback, guys. And that's why I did it, just to demonstrate that it can be fine. And honestly, I kind of like waiting a little longer. You guys are going to hate me when I take another wide receiver here. But I'm just going to punt some of these positions and have such trade equity that it's going to be insanely fun. I like Ladd McConkey, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm drafting a lot of rookies, but if even one or two of these rookies hits, it's going to be crazy. Let's reach a little bit on Ladd McConkey. He's 88 overall on the sleeper list, but that's going to go away pretty quick. Yeah, he would be gone. He might have been gone before this next pick. 2 wide receivers on my bench. That's probably enough. I've probably done enough. But I like wide receivers. I think like what happens every year is the rookies that emerge, they turn into Justin Jefferson, and then you're drafting them up here at the 1.5. So I'm not saying that all my guys are going to do that, but those are the types of players that I am drafting to try and identify. And look, the running backs keep dropping because nobody wants them. So I'm still going to be able to get a decent running back if I want. Not afraid at all. I got to stop clicking the wide receiver tier, though. I got to stop clicking because it's going to get me in trouble. Let me see if the comments are killing me for this. No, Caleb, because you're a Packers fan. That's fair. Wide receiver is so deep. I'm missing out on good running backs. I am prospect, but I also feel like that ship sailed in the second round when Derrick Henry. Like what I should have done, which I couldn't at this spot. Gibbs went right before me when I took Garrett Wilson. I couldn't take Barkley. Kyron maybe, but I'm a little bit spooked by Corum. Achane is not really a workhorse, and then Henry is more of a back half of the second. It's just from this draft position. You'd have seen me do a completely different strategy if I was drafting from the 1.2 instead of the 1.10. No doubt about it. All right, now we can try to figure out our next step. Not taking another wide receiver. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I'm going to say that before my next pick, only one guy needs a quarterback. So if y'all start drafting backups, so be it. But I might as well wait. If I'm going to be about it, I need to be about it. I'm going to take a guy that I haven't taken much of, and that's Tony Pollard. I need to recognize that the Titans spent money on Tony Pollard. That Tony Pollard, when he had a legitimate backfield mate in Zeke Elliott to kind of share the load with. He was more efficient and effective with the Cowboys a couple of years ago. And the fact that he had an injury that he was coming off of last year didn't help his efficiency. I think Tony Pollard and PPR could be splitting time with Tyjae Spears, could be just fine as an RB2. I'm getting him in the 8th. If I had already 2 running backs, the pick that DeSource just made would have been my guy, Jonathan Brooks. He's going to miss the first 3-4 games, but when he comes in, he could be the one. He could be the go-to guy in Carolina. Now, in his case, that is his RB2. So that makes things a little bit riskier for him, but he's got elite wide receivers. Chase, Kupp, Devontae Smith, Kittle locked in a good tight end. Can't argue against that. Got Burrow. So he's doing a similar thing that I did with RB2 and just kind of throwing it away. And look, he's still going to have to find somebody in probably the 9th or 10th round to actually start week 1. But by maybe week 6, he's got Jonathan Brooks could be a top 12 RB. Like, we don't know. Maybe the most acclaimed rookie, but he's coming off an ACL. I am going to sleep at night knowing I've got players I like. Pollard is not someone I'm just over the moon for. And I honestly, if I had one fewer wide receiver, if I had done the Brock Bowers thing, if I had done, the Kyler thing at some point instead of Xavier Worthy, whatever it would have been, CJ Stroud instead of Xavier Worthy. If I had done that 6th-round pick a little bit differently, I probably in the 8th do take a receiver. I would have taken Keon Coleman or Addison. But because of the bed that I made, I'm now lying in it, as we're seeing, as I squirm live on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, please. If you're watching this, subscribe. Let's get these numbers up. What's up, Jonathan? Allison said, interesting strategy by many people here. Seems that my league, the tight ends usually go in the 1st and 2nd rounds. Not used to seeing wide receivers go early. Yep, I'm an early wide receiver kind of guy. Now we're seeing a late RB run. Javonte Williams could be very interesting. I thought coming in I would be really enamored with him, and I just have not taken him in mocks. I don't know what Sean Payton's cooking up over there. I want to see more out of Denver as far as who's going to be the running backs that he uses. Sort my page differently here. We're seeing Hollywood Brown take a tumble. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. It is something to be said, though. If you draft an injured player like Jonathan Brooks, I play in a lot of leagues that have IR spots. You can stash them. That can end up being a very valuable thing. We got a couple of running backs. I think it's better to make sure you've got either either tight end or quarterback filled by this time, and I don't have either. The 6th round is kind of where I went awry, but I wanted to get my piece of Xavier Worthy. I'm not going to regret it when I have him. It'll just mean I have more to trade with, and I got to figure some stuff out when I get to the season. My quarterback's not going to be as elite week 1. My tight end is certainly not going to be elite week 1. I'll have some things to kind of work through, but that's okay. I am prepared for that. Corum. Now we're starting to see some of those, even these later running backs go off the board. Tyjae Spears. Spears could have been a good pick, too. I mean, I took Pollard a round and a half earlier. Spears might be the better value because you get him a little cheaper. But it's interesting strategy. Let me check out the comments here, see if I'm missing anything. Kelsey, Laporta, or McBride at tight end. Mark Andrews. Yeah, I honestly think all the way through Kittle, I like the tight ends. And unfortunately, I just waited too long. So Hawkinson is another guy that Noli will be able to put on IR, and he'll be able to start Goddard week 1. That's another kind of nice roster manip that I think people should think about. Same thing. If DeSource takes a running back here, Zach Moss, Eckler, Brian Robinson, you can then start that guy RB2. Brooks ends up being in your IR, and then he's suddenly a robust, really good RB2, hopefully, when he gets healthy. The other thing here, too, is what I was going to say is Brian Robinson. People are kind of like, Washington Commanders running backs, Eckler, Robinson, and Brob is who he takes. Evidently, I was reading Matthew Berry had some stuff on Brian Robinson that seems to think with Cliff Kingsbury now in Washington, there could be a good trend for him as just kind of the James Conner almost of that offense. And I could kind of see it. I could see Brian Robinson being almost like a discount David Montgomery in the way that he's used. Eckler is sort of the Gibbs role. Not saying Eckler's going to be as productive as Gibbs, but that to me is kind of the comp that I would make. And you're getting those guys a lot cheaper. I'm not going to let Chase Brown drop further than this. So now I'll probably start Chase Brown, honestly, over Pollard. But now I feel, suddenly I'm fine at running back. Like, I've got no qualms about how I handled the running back position in this draft. Right? Like, I wish I had a little bit of a younger option than Montgomery or Pollard, because even a Trey Benson would give you some upside that we're like, is he unknown? Brooks, unknown. James Cook. Like, I could have taken a running back earlier. My receivers, I love. And Zach Moss goes right behind Chase Brown. I prefer Chase Brown over Moss, personally. But we'll see. We need to read the reports out of Cincy, for sure. Dalton Kincaid, another good tight end. Yep, there's 6 or 8 of them that I think are pretty good. If Achane stays healthy all season, I don't think Mostert repeats from last year. I'm not touching Mostert. Yep. Now, Achane could get hurt, but that's when I'm like, hey, Jalen Wright, come on down as a late-round pick, because they're still going to use 2 backs. I'll bet against Mostert, and if I lose, I'll tip my cap. I've seen too many years of him getting injured in like week 2. So he's not really the direction I'm looking to go. Lots of running backs late. People are kind of realizing up here's the dead zone. Not as many running backs taken. Only 1 in the 6th. In the 7th round, you had 2. That's where the value is better on receivers, and I took 2 of them, so I can't complain. I've got another pick coming up, don't I? The slide finally ends for Hollywood Brown. Now I feel like I'm teaming with running back talent. I've got 3. I've got 1 on my bench even. What more could you ask for? What more could you ask for, folks? All right, it's getting to the point in the draft where I could envision people starting to take backup quarterbacks, but that would be annoying. Let's lock in Cole Kmet. He's really the only tight end anymore that I like at all. I think with a rookie quarterback, Cole Kmet could be just fine. And I was going to do it. I was going to take a quarterback, but then I thought Jordan Love hasn't even been taken. Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, Tua, Goff, Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if every team took a backup between now and my next pick, I still might not have to take Taysom Hill. I mean, Will Levis is going to be perfectly serviceable. Geno Smith is free. So, yeah. I don't think there's a lot of value and utility to taking Kmet because I don't think anybody else was going to take him. But there's a lot of picks between now and my next pick. So I feel fine with it. It's good to get comfortable with a draft. I'm kind of looking at my team going, I don't really draft a lot of Pollard and Montgomery, but those are exactly the kind of guys that are going to get volume for their teams, and they'll fall into the end zone from time to time. And after they do, you can trade a Pollard who just scored 15 in PPR. You can package him with, DK Metcalf to upgrade your wide receiver. Or rather, package him with a bench bat like Ladd McConkey or Xavier Worthy if they had a big week for an actual better running back than Pollard or Montgomery. And you are allowed to kind of wait through. Like, if you lose Pollard to injury week 1, you're pissed because he's your RB2. But you're like, well, I have Chase Brown, and I only spent an 8th round pick on Pollard. So it's not like my whole draft is up in smoke. If I lose Derrick Henry week 1 to injury, I'm bumming because I spent on that pick. Granted, Garrett Wilson could get injured game 1. That could happen too. I just feel like normally it's the wide receivers having a little bit better injury luck. Just my thoughts. Doing my boy Freiermuth dirty. Yeah, I could have gone with Freiermuth too. I just wanted someone that I really feel like does have some upside. And Kmet, I mean, he put up some good numbers last year with Fields. And that passing offense, I'm excited to see what Caleb Williams can do. So I grabbed Kmet. I'm usually in my real drafts going to have a tight end before this point in the draft, but I didn't this time, so I kind of had to make sure I locked one in. But because of me waiting, I ended up not prioritizing running back at all, and yet still I leave with Montgomery, Pollard, and Chase Brown, who I think is going to get more looks for Cincinnati than Zach Moss will. And so, I mean, with those 3 guys, I've got a bunch of RB2s on my team, and that's all I need with the running back, with the wide receivers I have. Prospect says Mostert will get his regardless. You can't stack that box against the Dolphins wide receivers. 12 touchdowns should be easy for Mostert. I'm almost just betting against his health by not taking him. Colin doesn't like the Bengals running backs or the Browns. I'd rather have Najee and Ramondre. Hey, man, I'm glad you feel that way because I am very clearly in favor of the Bengals running backs compared to Najee and Ramondre. That's why I think I have a chance to have a team I like because those guys are getting drafted ahead of guys like Chase Brown. And I prefer Brown easily. Chubb would be fun to draft in case. Kmet over Ferguson is a question mark. Yeah, I got to look a little bit more into Ferguson. But that's another good point. And he ends up going at the 11th round pick as we start to see some backup tight ends go off the board. Yeah, I mean, Dak should probably need Jake Ferguson. I might need to reconsider that, Smooth. I might need to think about that a little bit deeper. But that would be all the more reason that I should be comfortable waiting at the tight end position if I had to. Been drafting Brown a lot in my mocks. I agree, Cobb. He's the one for me in Cincy. Beckham is down to a few seconds. He takes Zeke Elliott. Somebody had to do it, I suppose. Zeke Elliott, Zamir White, Derrick Henry, and Kamara. A lot of older running backs on that team, Beckham. Jaden Daniels goes at the 11.4. That's who I was going to take at 10.3 if I took a quarterback. I think he's got the rushing upside this late. I probably should have peeked over to realize that Team 4 had not picked one up yet at quarterback. I thought I was just going to get him for free. But there's other ones that are going to be just fine. And you know, I mean, Jordan Love is still sitting there. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem waiting. Jordan Love last year, was he not like really good for fantasy? 330 points. Yeah, dude, he had 32 touchdowns. I'm going to be just fine. But yeah, Daniels would be the late round target. I think he's a good play by Team 4 there. Just a couple rounds to go. But I'm enjoying this exercise. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel. Appreciate everybody who hopped in. Tell your friends, too. I'd like to get this to be a more regular thing. Now we're getting some older players like Thielen off the board. Okay. You'll notice I don't draft many old players, mostly rookies. Had to do it a little bit differently at running back, but that's for reasons that we have already identified. Could still probably take one more running back to get a fourth one on my team. Plenty of wide receivers. But, like, yeah, could Jacoby Myers and Khalil Shakir and Shaheed and Jalen Polk, could these guys, Darnell Mooney, could these guys be good for fantasy? Thielen? I guess so. They could. Curtis Samuel. I want the sexy names, man. I want to take a shot. I don't see any of those guys becoming second-round picks in 2025. Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy, Tank Dell, these guys could be second-rounders in your fantasy drafts in 12 months. I'm not saying they're all going to be, but it could happen. I'm really kind of wearing thin. I almost needed one more receiver because now there's no receivers left I want to take. But I'm going to lock in Jalen Wright because I had talked about him. I think if Mostert or Achane gets injured, and they both got injury histories, Wright steps in, rookie out of Tennessee, into that rushing scheme and has just as much success as some of the others. Now, Achane's probably more explosive, but I think his speed back style, Jalen Wright, is going to fit there. So, yeah, I'm taking upside in all of these bench bats that I can come up with. And here I probably will take a quarterback just because it's the very end after this, and I don't want to be susceptible to everybody taking a good quarterback with their last round pick. I will be kind of torn. I'll tell you what it is. I think Sleeper, I think their default format is 4-point pass touchdowns. In that format, I'd rather have the rushing upside if I can find it. You know, Trevor Lawrence can run a little bit. You know, Caleb Williams remains to be seen, but he should be able to run a little bit. We'll see. Tua's not really going to run, but if it was a 6-point pass touchdown, you know, I like guys like Tua. I like guys like Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy's probably not going to run into many touchdowns, but he's going to throw for his share. Now, you have McCaffrey to kind of vie with there. You almost want a guy that, as Caleb Williams is not an option for me. Micah takes him as a backup. I probably would have stacked him with Kmet, potentially. If this was 6-point pass touchdowns, though, I'm looking at Jordan Love or Caleb Williams. Or rather, Jordan Love is probably who I would have taken. Granted, I didn't end up getting the opportunity. But you're telling me that I can have Trevor Lawrence for basically free at the end of the draft? Like, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to be just fine with that. Purdy has been solid. Let me kind of look through. 306 fantasy points last year for Purdy. 284 for Tua, but we know he missed some time. Goff, 300. They're all going to be about the same. Lawrence kind of struggled last year. You can't really go wrong with just about any of these guys. But I'm going to bleed a little clock and think about it. Josh Downs, I might like a flyer on him if he was healthy. But he's not. Yeah, man, it just, I don't know why I have Tua starred. You can really kind of take your pick. I don't know. Give me Brock. Give me Brock Purdy. I don't care. It's quarterback, man. It's quarterback, and I'm assuming 4-point pass touchdowns. But if it was 6, I think I would go more toward the stationary types like Jared Goff, like Tua, like Kirk Cousins. But then you think about the running backs that those teams have too. You're like, all right, Bijan's going to run in a bunch of them. Miami offense is going to run in a bunch of them. Dontavian Wicks would have been a guy that I had actually kind of circled and didn't scroll down far enough to see him. There are some receivers down there that I'll take a flyer on. I'll take Greg Dortch and not give it a second thought. There he is. Wicks is a good pick in the 12th, though. I mean, he's got juice. He had a good preseason game the other day. Yep, I don't really mind this team at all. I like the players I've got. Running back is a work in progress, but I'm not going to have this running back core by the time the playoffs start. It's going to be completely different because I'm going to make trades. I will package one of these running backs or Chase Brown. If whoever's getting me 10 to 12 per week, that guy's going to get packaged with Tank Dell or Worthy or Metcalf for an upgrade at running back, and then I'll slide a receiver from my bench in, is sort of the way I expect it to go. Brock Purdy, yep. Dobbins, there's a lot of guys that are interesting. Not all of them are going to hit. And Colin likes Shaheed in the 11th. Yeah, man, Shaheed might be great. I just have a type. I have a type, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, Rashid Shaheed in his 3rd or 4th year is going to break out. Like, that's not really me. Right? Like, he was fine last year, had some good moments. He's up on the depth chart now even further, but am I going to really attach myself to a Derek Carr wide receiver in the 11th, or am I going to take, somebody that I feel like is a rookie with upside? That's just the way I think. Where BK did it, I don't have an issue with it, and he took a rookie with upside with his 12th pick in Burton, which I think is a nice play too. You never know. What if Jamar Chase holds out, and then Burton's suddenly in the lineup? Stranger things have happened, I guess. Charbonnet, Baker. Yeah, we're just seeing, there's plenty of quarterbacks. This is a year to play super flex because there are going to be 20 to 24 to 25 quarterbacks that do just fine unless they all get hurt like last year. That would be the way it doesn't go that way. I agree with Hero RB. I like it as well. I obviously didn't do it this time. Left myself a little bit lean at running back. But it helps me to simplify to say, hey, I know that I'm always on the prowl, and then I'm going to try to buy low on running backs in my leagues, right? When that guy has a down week, when Derrick Henry doesn't score a touchdown, but a wide receiver on my bench scores 2, I'm going to be coming to that Derrick Henry owner with Pollard and 2-touchdown McConkey, say, hey, man, Henry got you 2 points last week. You don't want that bum. Is it going to work? Not all the time. And look, week 1, people are going to say, all right, I want to see more about Derrick Henry. I know who he is. I'm not just going to. But what if it's week 5 and you've seen too many weeks of Derrick Henry struggling? Are you going to be able to have the resolve to hold on for dear life? Or are you going to be willing to maybe make a trade if you feel like it improves your team? And in my case, I can afford to trade from my bench because I should still have wide receivers that are cooking. I'm not saying it's going to be guaranteed, but it's the way that allows me to play that I can kind of hyper-focus my mind on certain aspects. I'm gonna make this pick as though Brandon Ayuk could still get traded. Why not just throw Ricky Pearsall at the end, stack him with Brock Purdy, right? I did want another receiver. I love the Theo Weiss pick. I actually took him in a dynasty. I need to put that in the chat because I took Theo Weiss in a dynasty draft with a bunch of Mizzou grads, and and everybody was like, "What the hell?" But he is. Theo Weiss is going into his last year at Mizzou, and for some reason, Sleeper has him on the platform. Hey, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe to the channel before we get out of here. I'm probably going to, rather than do another mock tonight, I probably have to do my Cardinals podcast and call it good on that. But this was a lot of fun. I think we're learning things. I love the live chat, everybody kind of popping off. Please do subscribe. Tell your friends that play fantasy. Send out the channel in your league and say, hey, this is my guy. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers. Would be awesome if I could make that happen. So I appreciate you guys so much for those who joined in for the draft. We had a lot of fun. Thank you all for watching the stream. I'm going to end it here, but stay tuned. We're going to be doing more of these from this channel. So if you like this kind of stuff for the next few weeks, this is going to be the place that you're going to find a lot of it. So thank you guys so much for watching the stream. Just give you a final rundown of my team. I think it looked pretty good. I know I waited on too many of the key positions, but I love my wide receivers. If you could tell me I can go into a league with Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, and I got at least Chase Brown on my bench, I'm going to feel pretty good. So it's fun, man. Fantasy season's here. We're going to be doing a lot of these kind of videos, live streams, pre-recorded videos, all that good stuff. So stay tuned, guys. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.